Okay, so let's start with a little bit of silence, focusing on the breath, letting the mind relax. So in this space in front, then imagine the Buddha surrounded by all the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They're made of light. And really try and feel like you're sitting in the presence of a lot of holy beings. And we're surrounded by all sentient beings. Our mother on our left, our father on our right. The people we don't get along with in front of us. Everybody else around us. And we're all looking to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha for spiritual direction, for refuge. And so as we say the different verses, then contemplate the meaning and think that you're leading all other living beings imagined around you in generating those same thoughts and feelings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all my deceptive actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate all the virtues of myself and others to the Great Awakening. This ground anointed with perfume, flower-strewn Mount Meru, four lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Holy Gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Guru Ratna Mandala Niryatayami. Then we imagine a duplicate of the Buddha comes and sits on top of our head, facing the same way as we do, and petitions the merit field with us. Glorious and precious root Guru, sit upon the lotus and moon of my crown, guiding me with your great kindness. Bestow upon me the attainments of your body, speech, and mind, the eyes through whom the vast scriptures are seen, supreme doors for the fortunate to cross over to spiritual freedom, illuminators whose wise means vibrate with compassion. To the entire line of spiritual mentors I make request. Then imagine light and nectar come from the Buddha on your head, and imagine a Buddha on the heads of all the sentient beings around you. And as we chant the mantra, the light and nectar flows into us, into all the sentient beings, and it purifies our negativities and brings the inspiration to gain the realizations of the path. Tayata Muni Muni Maha Muni Asoha. 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 And come back to your motivation to be free of a cyclic existence, to make your life meaningful by benefiting other sentient beings, and by fulfilling all of our potential, actualizing our potential, so that we can be of the greatest benefit to other living beings. So last week we finished the section about how to cultivate serenity or shamatha, the mind that can stay fixed on a virtuous object as long as we want, without succumbing to either laxity or excitement. And a mind that is imbued with pliancy, so that both the body and mind are very flexible and can be applied to anything we want. So that was the topic of last week. This week, we're going to talk about insight or vipassana. Which is a word that's not so well understood in America, because in the US, vipassana has become the name of a Buddhist tradition, when actually it's the name of a meditation technique that is found in many Buddhist traditions. Okay, so it's a little bit confusing, but we're going to be talking about what vipassana is in the Tibetan tradition. So this has to do with realizing the ultimate nature of reality, how things really exist, not how they appear to exist, but what their actual mode of existence is. And before I get into the text itself, it's helpful to know some words. So when we talk about the ultimate mode of existence of phenomena, we say that they're empty of true existence, empty of inherent existence. Okay, so emptiness, is a key word here, but what emptiness means, like the emptiness of inherent existence, means the absence of inherent existence. It doesn't mean that things are totally non-existent. It just means that we have projected inherent existence onto things. They don't have that mode of existence. They are empty of that mode of existence. Okay, so that's what it means, And so what is inherent existence or true existence, existence from its own side? All these words basically mean the same. It's talking about a way of existence that is independent of other factors. Okay, so something existing independent of other things. So, we feel like we're independent people, right? Here I am. I'm me. I'm an independent person. Huh? Right? Yeah. Are we really independent? Yeah. When you look, we're not so independent. First of all, we depend on other people for food, clothing, shelter, medicine, don't we? Yeah. And then not only do we depend on other people, but just to say the word I, we have to depend on our body and mind. Okay? and we depend on causes. We didn't appear miraculously, causelessly, so we depend on causes. We have components, our body and mind. And then, we also exist by, in terms of terms and concepts. So on the basis of our body and mind, somebody, looks and says, oh, there's a person there, and her name is Harriet, or his name is Melvin, So people exist by being labeled. They depend on conceptuality, okay? But even though things are dependent in that way, we tend to think of ourselves as independent entities and tend to think that anything we see around us also exists independently with its own essence. Okay, so this is our fundamental ignorance, that we think, oh, there's a real cup out there, and a real computer here, and a real gong there, and I have real problems, and I have a real boyfriend or girlfriend, or I don't have a real boyfriend or girlfriend. Everything seems very real and concrete to us, when in actual fact things exist dependent on other stuff, on other things. Okay? So, if we look at dependency, we can really learn a lot. It can help clarify our mind. So let me give just some very simple examples of dependency, so you can see why it's important to see that things exist in a dependent manner and they don't exist independently. Take manners for example. Okay? So each culture has its own ideas about what is polite, what is good etiquette and what is rude. Yeah. When we are in, we grew up in this Western culture, so we have an idea of what good manners are, and we think everybody in the world should follow those same good manners. We don't realize that those manners have been developed by people's conceptuality, but we think that that manners are fixed and solid, so everybody should follow the same code of etiquette, and if they don't, they're rude. Right? And we'll get very judgmental of people who are rude. So it's very interesting when you go to Tibetan culture, because some of the things that we take for granted as being polite, they consider rude, and vice versa. Okay? So, for example, in Western culture, when you like something, you applaud, right? We clap. In Tibetan culture, you clap to scare away the ghosts. Yeah. So when the British army got into Tibet in around, 1908, something around there, and they were walking through the streets and the Tibetans were clapping, the Brits thought, oh, they like us, and actually the Tibetans were trying to chase them away. They thought they were demons. Okay? Yeah?
What is it with the tongue out? Like they
Yeah. So in our culture, it's very impolite to stick your tongue out, like that. I mean, really, that's not good form. You don't go to a debutante ball and go like that. Or even for a job interview, In Tibetan culture, that's considered very polite because it means that you aren't saying any kind of mantras or spells to inflict harm on the other person. Yeah, it shows that your tongue is clean. Yeah. In Tibetan culture, yeah, when you have to sneeze or blow your nose, just to go achoo, or to take a tissue and blow your nose, that is considered extremely rude. Yeah, the way you blow your nose is you take your robe and put it over your head. Then you blow your nose. Then you go like this, and, you know. And that is considered polite. Okay? So, you know, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because when we think of manners, we think of them as being very solid and concrete, universally applicable. And they're not. You know, the meaning of certain gestures means different things in different cultures. Yeah, they're dependent on the culture. They're dependent on the meaning that people impute on them. Okay? So not realizing this, we can get in some trouble sometimes. Yeah. I mean, you see this if you go traveling to India. Yeah. What is considered acceptable dress for a woman in the West is considered really risque in India, and you're, you know, dare I say, asking for trouble. Yeah. But people don't realize that. They think, well, what's my culture does, everybody should follow. And that's not necessarily the case. Okay, so these are some good examples about how things depend on conception. Yeah, that they don't exist inherently as either polite or rude, as proper dress or improper dress. Okay, depends on the minds of the people. Okay, so you know, if we remember dependency, it can help us in many, many ways. Now, because, for example, if you're having problems with somebody, yeah, often what we think the issue is not what the other party thinks the issue is. Okay? But again, you know, if we're grasping things as independently existent, well, I think we're fighting over X, then I talk to that other person as if X were their concern too. But in their mind, they're not fighting over X, they're fighting over M. And I'm not even realizing it. So we're fighting over two different things. No wonder we don't get along. Okay? So we have to, you know, step back and see how things depend, and then that can really help us. Yeah? Last night I spoke a little bit about country borders, you know, and how dependent they are. And I remember one time when I was leading a retreat in the Negev desert in a kibbutz. The kibbutz was right on the border with Jordan. It had the fence, and then it had some raked sand. And then it, you know, had another little border, and then Jordan. The raked sand was in case anybody, you know, tried to cross over into Israel, they would have to step there and you could see their footprints. Okay, so I would stand right there on the border, you know, with the fence, and look at that sand, and look at this sand on the two sides of the fence, you know, and you know they're both sand. That's it, and yet people will fight a war over the label you put on that sand. Is that sand this country, or is that sand that country? Is it yours, or is it mine? Yeah? Another, kind of thing to show how we get into fixed ways of thinking is you grow up in the West, and so you think democracy is the best way, right? Then we all grow up, democracy? Yeah, democracy is absolutely positively the best way. Everybody should be democratic. Yeah? And then I went and I lived in Tibetan culture, and they don't want democracy. Yeah, His Holiness. It's so interesting. It's the only country where the leader wants less power and wants to have more democracy, and the people don't want democracy, they want the leader to have more power. Yeah. But one of our problems in the US, in terms of our foreign policy, is we think democracy is inherently good for everybody, independent of culture, circumstances, economics, and everything else. Yeah. Well, we should have realized by now that that's not true. Yeah? That to have democracy, you need certain things going on in the society first. And if you don't have those things going on, democracy, turns into corruption, exploitation, and chaos, not into the best thing for everybody. Okay? So, just this process of seeing how things depend on other things. Yeah? They aren't self-contained units of stuff that you can pick up and move somewhere else, and they're going to have the same function and the same meaning. Mm-hmm. And we can see sometimes how, I was saying that things depend on being conceived and being labeled, but we often forget that we're the ones that labeled things, that gave things their label. And instead we think that they have the meaning of the label in them, that they have some essence that really is that thing. Yeah. And then we react very strongly to different labels. Okay? So, if you, before, let's say, we had the label AIDS or HIV, yeah, you could say that word, make that sound, and AIDS, everybody would say, oh, that's what you do to help people. Yeah, AIDS, yeah, that's what aid is. Yeah, or we would see a certain collection of symptoms and, not even call it a disease. Yeah, sometimes. It's quite interesting, when you hear the name of a disease, the disease seems so real. But actually, all that's there is a collection of symptoms. And on the basis of those symptoms, we give it a name. But then, often when we hear the name, we're like frightened to death, not realizing that the name is just a shortcut for that collection of symptoms. Yeah. So if somebody maybe told you instead of saying the name of the disease, they gave you a description of the disease, you might not get so frightened. But when you hear the name, because we've made it very concrete, then, yeah, becomes terrifying. Okay, so just a little bit here, about how things depend on labeling, how they depend on parts, how they depend on causes. And when we think of ourselves, like I said before, we don't usually think of ourselves as dependent beings. Yeah, we feel like there's a real person here. Like, do you, when you just sit and, look at your feeling of self, do you feel like you exist simply because the causes of you exist? No. We don't think, oh, I exist just because the causes of me exist. We don't feel that at all. Yeah. Because that kind of implies if the causes for me didn't exist, I wouldn't be here. But I'm here and I'm real and I'm permanent and I don't change and I'm always existing. And I'm this unique individual. That's the way we feel, isn't it? We don't feel like, oh, I exist just because the causes for me exist. No, we are real. Very real. And when we think of different people in relationship to us, those people seem real too. And we put all sorts of meaning on relationships, You are my mother, you are my father. Oh my goodness, there's a whole job description that's 25 pages long that follows that term, isn't there? Yeah? Think when you say my mother, all the expectations you have of what a mother should be or what a father should be. Yeah? And we think that that's what they should be, and, when they aren't, then we get upset. Or we have a good friend, and again, in our, best friend, or my partner, or my spouse, and we have a whole job description. Yeah, if you are my best friend, then this and this and this and this and this better pertain. Yeah? And if you're my boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever, then this and this and this and this pertain. And we expect that, we have these expectations, and we assume that the other person has the same expectations. We never bother to ask them. We just assume. Yeah. Because the word, we have our definition of the word. We assume everybody has the same definition. And then your parents or boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend, whoever it is, doesn't act according to your job description, and you get upset. Yeah. Because we thought, okay, this relationship is cast in concrete. Yeah, you should always behave towards me according to such and such and such and such. Yeah. And yet, the relationship isn't cast in concrete. Yeah. The other person doesn't know our expectations. We don't know all of their expectations either. Yeah. But we hold these things very strongly, especially if there's a label that's describing our relationship with them. Then we assume that they better act in a certain way. And if they don't, there's gonna be trouble. Okay? So it's interesting to think about sometimes, select different words that describe relationships and think of what your definition is and how you relate to that word. And, do other people have that same definition? And could the fact that you have different definitions, because the word is simply a word, and the concept is simply a concept, it has no inherent meaning. Yeah. Could that have anything to do with the disagreement that we're experiencing? Yeah. So interesting, This grain of sand, is this grain of sand Jordan? Or is this grain of sand Israel? And what happened if the grain of sand got stuck in my pant cuffs and I brought them back into the States? Then does it become American? Yeah? It's interesting, isn't it? Oh, another excellent example of imputation. The dear Confederate flag. Yeah? When you look at it, all that flag is, cotton or polyester, whatever they make out of it, make it out of. And its colors, that's all it is. It's red, white, and blue. Isn't it? Yeah? Yeah. But boy, does that flag have a lot of meaning to it. Mm-hmm. And we see how different people impute different things to the configuration of red, white, and blue on that piece of cloth. Yeah, they impute very different meanings. Mm-hmm. The red, white, and blue in the cloth from its side does not have any meaning. Yeah, from the side of the cloth, there's no meaning in it. It has meaning because we impute meaning. Okay? And different people imputed different meanings on this cloth. Or at least they thought they did. I don't know. Yeah? And so that piece of cloth became a point of contention because of the meanings that we imputed on it. But from the side of the cloth, actually, none of those meanings are there. Yeah? It's interesting, isn't it? I must say I'm very glad they took it down. Yeah, extremely glad they took it down. Because you still have to function in conventional society where certain assembly of parts have certain meaning. So you have to still function in that conventional way, but at the same time knowing that actually there's nothing from the side of the cloth. Yeah. When I was young, in the days of the dinosaurs, many people burn the American flag. And whoa! The controversy over the Confederate flag was nothing compared to people burning the American flag. I mean, people were going berserky when, people protesting the Vietnam War would burn the flag. Yeah? And it's interesting, it took all the way until 1989 for it to become legal to burn the flag. All that time during the 60s and 70s that people were burning flags and getting arrested for it. Yeah? Because the flag represented something that many people did not feel comfortable with. Yeah? And then some people's mind says, if you're harming the symbol, you are harming me. Yeah? And I respect this symbol, I am a patriotic American. So if you burn the flag, you are, you're desecrating a holy object. Again, it's just a piece of cloth. Yeah? But people impute meaning on that cloth. And especially if you have somebody from the armed services who went through, risking their life, they impute a certain meaning on that cloth that other people don't. And they become very sensitive to it. Yeah. So quite interesting, how symbols can become so, they can become a really big deal, can't they? Huh? I've always wondered how you can pledge allegiance to a flag. Since I was a kid, it's like, how can you, isn't your allegiance to a principle or to a group of people? To me, when I think of allegiance or loyalty, it's to, it's to a principle or a group of people. But a piece of cloth, I always wondered how that, why it was worded that way. Huh? I pledge allegiance, what is it? To the flag of the United States of America. Yeah. Yeah, but under God. Yeah. But it doesn't say I pledge allegiance to the things that stands. You're pledging allegiance to the flag.
Yeah, but it says what it stands for.
Yeah, but what it stands for, we don't have. Do we have liberty and justice for all in this country?
Well, they just figured out that most of the people that are getting executed have a handful of judges. They've just done the data.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the same DAs and the same judges that are, yeah. Yeah, liberty and justice for all? Huh? Sounds good, but I don't know. Yeah, I wish it were true. And then under God, what does that mean? This is a country where you have a separation of, church and state. So how can you say under God in the Pledge of Allegiance? That's completely contradicting what you say you stand for. Yeah? And then on money, under God, well, yeah, money is holy, Money is the meaning of life. Of course it's under God. No, it's just curious to me how we use words and the meanings that we give the words. Yeah, so maybe I should read from the text here. Yeah, get us back on topic. No, but it's interesting, isn't it? To really kind of question these different things that we take for granted. And what do they mean? And what do they really mean? What do we really believe? Yeah? All men are created equal. Yeah, as long as you're white.
As long as you're a man, male.
Yeah, well, they say that they're specific about. All men are created equal. They were very specific about leaving us out. But they needed to say all white men are created equal. Yeah, that's what they meant. Yeah, rich white men, right.
If you didn't own
That's
property, you couldn't vote, you couldn't do anything at that time.
Really? You had to be a property owner?
Property owner.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah,
Well, the Star Spangled Banner was written in 1812,
yeah.
and you had to be a property owner
Mm. To vote, even.
to vote.
And when did that change?
I don't know.
Oh, it hasn't, maybe.
Rights in what, 1960? Make sure everybody had a proper right chance to vote. Now
Yeah,
they're trying to take it away.
right. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's good to kind of question this stuff. What do people really mean, and what are we doing when we're saying certain things? Huh? Okay, so let's get back to the text here. Okay, so we're on the section, it's how to train in insight of Vipassana. So it has what to do in the actual meditation session and between sessions. In the preliminaries, in the sessions, it has the preliminaries, the actual meditation, and the conclusion. Okay, so it says the preliminaries are explained in the context of serenity. More specifically, while correctly relying on a learned spiritual mentor, receive instructions on insight, ardently request the mentors inseparable from the deity, strive to purify negativities and accumulate virtue, and so on. Combining the three is the indispensable prerequisite to the realization of views. So the three there means purification, accumulation of merit, and making requests to our spiritual mentor, seeing them as inseparable from the deity. Okay, and then the actual meditation session has two parts. How to meditate once the selflessness of persons is established, and how to meditate once the selflessness of phenomena is established. Okay, so we have to talk about this word selfless or selflessness. It doesn't mean, selfless doesn't mean what that word means in regular English. We usually think of selfless meaning somebody who is very benevolent, who doesn't think about themselves. They're selfless, and so they take care of others. That's not the meaning of selfless here. Okay? Here, okay, when we're talking about the nature of reality, the term self, it can have two meanings. Sometimes the word self means the person. Yeah, you, me, we're selves. Yeah. The other meaning of self means inherent existence, which is the object of negation. In other words, the type of existence that we think exists that does not exist. So when we have this, we project this false way of existence on persons, we call it the self of person. When we project it onto other phenomena, we call it the self of phenomena. When we negate that inherent existence exists on persons, we call that the selflessness of persons. And when we negate inherent existence on phenomena, we call that the selflessness of phenomena. Okay? So in self of persons, selflessness of persons, in both those terms, self means inherent existence, the type of existence that doesn't exist. Okay? That we're so familiar with that we can't even identify it. Yeah, that's how difficult it is. Okay, so although in his discourses, the conqueror, in other words, the Buddha, taught innumerable logical reasonings to establish selflessness, Since ascertaining it through the 4 key points is easier for beginners, the way to do so is as follows. And now he's going to explain this way of meditating on the selflessness of persons according to these 4 points. Okay? So he starts out, the thought, me. Okay, you got that thought? Me. Okay. Right? I mean, this is sometimes what's screaming inside of our heads, isn't it? What about me? I have something that is, needs to be listened to. I have something to say. You have to take my feelings into consideration. Yeah, right? I mean, me is a very potent word. Yeah. Mine is very potent also. Let me go off on a little diversion here about mine, or my, 2 letters, my. Yeah, it sounds like a very harmless word, doesn't it? My. There's nothing to that word, my. But as soon as we put that label my on some object or person, its whole meaning and relationship to us totally transforms. Okay? So, you go into an Apple store. Yeah, the Apple computer store, okay, not the other Apple store. Okay. And here's this beautiful computer that you really long for, that can do all these functions that you want to do and can make movies and all this far out stuff. Okay? So when you look at that computer, it's like, I want this. But if while you're in the store, somebody knocks it off the table and it crashes and, something breaks in it, well, that's too bad. But, it's not a big deal for you, is it? Yeah. But if you go into that store and you you give somebody a piece of plastic and they give you the computer. Yeah, which is a really good deal, isn't it? You give them a piece of plastic and they give you a computer? I mean, a piece of plastic is like, not very useful. Or you give, yeah? A computer's much more useful than a piece of plastic. Or you give them paper. You give them some pieces of paper and they give you a computer. Again, it's a good deal. I mean, just these pieces of paper. So, you trade the plastic or the paper. You got the computer. You bring it home. Yeah? And you're turning around because you're so happy you have the computer, and you accidentally go whack and the computer goes flying and lands on the floor. Okay. Now, it's the same computer, yeah? I mean, well, hopefully not exactly the same as the one that got knocked down in the shop, But the same model, yeah, as the one that fell on the floor in the shop, that you weren't upset about at all. But when it falls after you've traded the plastic for the computer, when it falls on the floor, you're really upset. I mean, really upset, aren't you? Especially if it's the first day you brought it home. Yeah. And why? Why are we so upset? Because there's the label my that has now been affixed to that computer. When it was in the shop, there was not the label my. At home, my computer is on the floor? What? It's like this is a big deal. And yet, it's basically the same thing that was in the store, wasn't it? Yeah. So as soon as we attach the word my to something, all sorts of stuff happens, especially with people. Yeah, you label my boyfriend or my girlfriend. Whoa, who that person is, everything about them changes once you've put that label on them. Yeah, it's just my, one syllable. But as soon as you're my boyfriend, my girlfriend, then, you have to, you better love me, and you better tell me you love me, and you better encourage me, and buy me presents, and remember my birthday, and do what I want you to do, and come home for family dinners on Sunday. Even if you don't like them, you better like them. And, you should like the same things I like, and be interested in the same things I'm interested in. And when I want to be serious, you should be serious. When I want to be funny, you should be funny. When I want you to cheer me up, you should cheer me up. Yeah, when I want you to feel like, studying about the War of 1812, you should feel like studying the War of 1812. When I want you to feel like, growing bonsai plants, then you should, want to grow bonsai trees. In fact, you should do everything I want you to do. That's the simple thing that happens after you get that adjective called my. True or not true? Yeah? Okay. It's just one word, but look what that word does. It makes someone who was just, Joe Blow, that you wouldn't even notice, or Josephine Blow, that you wouldn't notice, into somebody really important. Yeah? Quite interesting. The word my. Yeah. And me too, just the name me, has so much meaning. If somebody, walks into this room and, criticizes Semke and says, you're an idiot, you're this, you're that, look at you. It's like, and Semke's getting upset. It's like, Semke, look, chill out. Doesn't matter. Somebody walks into the room, and instead of looking at her, looks at me and says the exact same words. We have a problem here. Yeah. You just broke one of the rules of the universe, which is you criticized me. Yeah. No one is allowed to criticize me. Okay, so me, you're criticizing me. If you criticize her, not a problem. Yeah. But if you criticize me, big problem. Okay, so just a small word, a small change in concept regarding somebody, and, a huge change in behavior and in feeling. Okay, so we're going to kind of start looking at what is this me, what is this my, what is this person that owns things, what is this person to start with that we, are so attached to and so focused on. Okay. So the thought, me, that your mind tightly apprehends from the depths of your heart, even when sunk in a deep sleep, is the innate apprehension of self. Okay, so we're grasping, this self, this inherently existent person. And this is the innate grasping. And the innate grasping has been with us since beginningless time. Yeah, it goes from life to life automatically. No passport required. Yeah. When someone accuses you falsely of making a mistake that you have not made, you think, I didn't make that mistake, yet I am being accused of it. Then a strong apprehension or a strong grasping of I appears from deep within you, and the way the innate grasping at self apprehends the I is clear. Okay? So here what we're trying to do is see how this innate self-grasping apprehends the I. And an example to help us see that is when we're accused of doing something we didn't do. Yeah, because a big sense of I comes up at that time, doesn't it? Yeah. Or maybe we're being discriminated against. Again, a big sense of I comes up. Or criticized, big sense of I. Okay? That is the time for a small part of your mind to examine the I that the mind grasps and how it grasps it. Okay, so what you want to do at this time, because we have to, the first point in these 4 points is to see the object of negation. So here it means see how the object of this innate I grasping appears to us, to really understand how it appears. Yeah. If the analytical, this is the time for a small part of your mind to examine the I that the mind grasps and how it grasps it. If the analytical mind is too strong, the former perception will disappear, and as there will be nothing left to examine, you will not succeed. Hence, the major part of the mind should consistently produce the awareness of the I, and only a small portion of it examines it. Okay? So here we want to really see, what is this feeling of I that I am so sure I am that exists. So to get some kind of clear sense or feeling of what it is, you have to call it up, like by remembering a time when you were, accused of something you didn't do. Have that feeling strong in your mind, and then one little small part of your mind observe how the I appears. If you make that small part too big, then how the I appears, it hides. It hides somewhere in the body and mind. Yeah, so you can't see it clearly. So you have to, have more the attention on the I, and just a little bit watching how the I appears. If the analytical mind is too strong, the former perception will disappear, and there will be nothing left to examine, and you will not succeed. Hence, the major part of the mind should consistently produce the awareness of the I, and only a small portion of the mind should examine it. When you analyze the matter, the basis on which the innate apprehension of the I grasps the I are the 5 aggregates, the body and mind, and nothing else. Okay, so the 5 aggregates. Aggregate means heap or collection, and so what the person, when we designate person, Yeah, it's being designated independence on a body and mind. And the body and mind consist of 5 heaps, okay? Or aggregates. So one aggregate is the form aggregate. That means the body, this thing, okay? Then the other 4 aggregates are mental aggregates. They're not things you can see. They're not made of atoms and molecules. So the second aggregate is called feelings, and that is happy feelings, painful feelings, neutral feelings, or pleasant, painful, and neutral feelings, okay? Then the third aggregate, which is the second mental aggregate, is called discrimination, and that's the part of the mind that can tell the difference between one thing and another, okay? The fourth aggregate, the literal translation is like conditioned factors. Sometimes we call it volitional factors. What it means is all sorts of different mental factors, different attitudes, views, emotions that we have. It's kind of a grab bag for everything that's not the other 3 mental factors. Mental aggregates. And then the last mental aggregates is called primary consciousness. And there's 6 kind of primary consciousnesses. And these are what perceive the different kind of objects. So we have visual, auditory, olfactory, gustatory, tactile, and mental consciousness. Okay? And so they all have their own specific objects. So when we put it this way, on the basis of the collection of these 5 aggregates, form, feeling, discrimination, volitional factors, and consciousness, then the mind conceives person. Yeah. So person comes into being, yeah, by being merely designated independence on these 5 psychophysical aggregates. So that means that the person, the I, the me, has a relationship with the aggregates. Yeah, because we don't just designate me on the basis of empty space. Yeah, we designate me or I on the basis of the aggregates. Okay, so when you analyze the matter, the basis on which the innate apprehension of the I grasps the I are the 5 aggregates, the body and mind, and nothing else. It does not do so, so this grasping does not grasp the I on the basis of any of the 5 aggregates individually, nor on the basis of the body or mind individually. Okay? So this innate grasping doesn't just focus on one aggregate and say, I, that's me. Yeah, it has a global kind of feeling, okay? So, okay, it is on the global basis of the 5 aggregates as a group, or the body and mind as a group, that the innate apprehension of the I grasps the I as having always existed on its own, not as a simple designation by conception on this basis. Okay? So, based on this global thing, this collection of the body and mind, the innate I grasping grasps I. So it's not that the innate I grasping looks at the body and says the body is me. And it doesn't look at the mind and say the mind is me. But it's on the basis of this whole collection that it feels me. Okay? So this I, which is its object of apprehension, is the object of negation to be refuted. It must be ascertained not just by understanding someone else's explanation or by simple verbal images, but from within yourself palpably. This is the first key point, the key point of ascertaining the way the object of negation appears. Okay? So this feeling of a strong I, you know, the one who just got criticized for something I didn't do, that I, yeah, which is the object of that I grasping, yeah, is associated with just the collection of the body and mind, not with one or the other aggregate. And so it appears to be somewhere mixed in with the body and mind, and yet somehow separate from it too. Okay, that's how they say it appears. So, you know, think about it sometime. I mean, during the course of this week, I'm sure everything will not go as you like. Yeah, we can arrange that, but we don't have to. Usually it happens by itself. Yeah? And you will be unhappy about something, and you will be complaining about something, you know, or somebody will say something that you find offensive, you know, I don't like that. Yeah, so take that chance when that happens. You don't like something, you're ticked off about something. Yeah, to just, you know, focus on that feeling of I, and just one part of the mind kind of observe how it exists. Yeah, and it seems to be quite there and very independent. Yeah, I mean, it's really there. It doesn't feel like the I is merely labeled. The I is there. And it's a force to be reckoned with. And a big force, because this I is, everything in my whole world revolves around it. Everything. You know, the whole way I see the world is based on this I. And the most important thing in my life is this I must be happy. Yeah, and this I cannot suffer. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens, no matter what it entails. Yeah? Do you feel that inside yourself sometimes? Yeah? My happiness. Me. Yeah? So that thought of me, I mean, it governs our whole life. Yeah, because we think that the me is so real, and then based on how real it is, its happiness is most important. And anything that interferes with its happiness is like, gotta destroy it. Gotta fight against it. Yeah, so we wind up fighting against a lot of things because things get in the way of our happiness. And they can be big things, you know, like a mosquito biting you. You know, or a dinosaur chasing you. Yeah. Or a person you don't like chasing you or criticizing you. Or it could be, you know, a small thing of somebody just not treating you the way you think you should be treated. Yeah. People not appreciating us as much as they should. Yeah. Because after all, we're so worthy of other people's appreciation. Aren't we? Yeah, shouldn't they all appreciate us? Don't you think? I mean, this world is so fortunate to have me in it. That's the way we act. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first key point. That's the object of negation. Regarding the second key point, ascertaining the range of possibilities, reflect as follows. Does the I that is apprehended tightly in the depths of my heart by the perception that thinks of the I in relation to the aggregates? What kind of sentence is that? Does the I Okay, does the I that is apprehended tightly in the depths of my heart by the perception that thinks of the I, okay, does that I exist in relation to the 5 aggregates? Okay, is it one with the aggregates or distinct from them? Okay, because if we're examining here how the I exists, is the I the same thing as the aggregates, or is it distinct from the aggregates? Okay, so, if you have 2 things, they either have, in the context of them being inherently existent, they have, because inherent existent things, remember, it means they exist without depending on anything else. So if things are inherently existent, if you have 2 things, they have to be either exactly the same or they have to be unrelated. Totally distinct or totally the same. There's no other option. Okay, so the second key point here is deciding a third mode of existence other than these 2, in other words, being one and the same and being totally different, is absolutely impossible. Any existent, whatever it is, must have either an aspect of unity or an aspect of multiplicity. In this way, draw the conclusion that there is absolutely no third possible mode of existence other than these 2. Okay, now there's 2 more points, but they need some explanation. Maybe I'll pause here and see if there's any questions. Yeah.
This last point, the reason for that, we have to be exactly the same, completely distinct, is because of the appearance to us is that the thing is completely independent.
The reason there's only those 2 options is that if things inherently existed, it means that they are totally independent of other things. So if you have 2 things that are totally independent of everything else, either they have to be exactly the same thing, or they're totally independent of everything else. Those are the only 2 ways they can exist. Okay, so that's why. In the realm of things that have a dependent nature, you're not restricted to things being either identical or totally unrelated. Because in the realm of dependent things, they can be dependent on each other. But here, we're looking at that inherently existent I that we think exists. And we're seeing if the I, in fact, exists that way or not.
When we're doing that first step, we're trying to see how it appears. And so we're actually trying to see how it appears to stand on its own so much.
How it appears
How it
what?
appears to stand on its own so much.
Yeah. I mean,
Generate that.
we're trying to see how it appears. It's like if there's a thief in the house, yeah, you kind of have to hide out and wait for the thief to, kind of wander around. And you have to look at the thief and know what the thief looks like if you're going to catch him and kick him out. If you just say there's a thief, but you don't know is he tall or short or green or purple, you're not going to know how to catch him. Okay? Mm-hmm.
How much of a certainty do we need to have with each point before we move to the next point?
It's good to, as we're getting familiar, to go through all the points and get a feeling for all of them. But really, after you've done that and you understand the 4 points well, then you really need to focus on each point individually and get to the bottom of it before going on to the next point. Because if you don't, especially with the first point, if you can't, identify the way the inherently existent I appears, if you can't do that, then going on to the rest of it, you don't get any feeling from it at all. Okay? So this thing about, the inherently existent I and that feeling of it, it's like, when you think me, I exist, and it's kind of the feeling like, if I don't exist, then what else does, And if things don't exist as they appear to me, how else could they possibly exist? There's no other way. Yeah? So you have to really see that clearly.
This whole concept of how small the mind that examines the feeling of I needs to be is very helpful, because when I try to do this, I jump on it so big. That
Yeah.
It's sort of like,
Right, it hides, it runaways.
disappears,
Yeah.
Where did you go? It's because I'm just so like
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, and it hides. It'll hide in the body and mind, pretending to be one or the other of them, or, yeah. Yeah, so you have to really kind of catch it. And then the thing is, the time to catch it is when we're most emotionally revved up, which is the time when we most forget to look for it. Okay. Okay. So let me just read the rest of it, and then we'll talk about it next week. But just to read it, and then you can start thinking about it. Regarding the third key point, ascertaining the lack of inherent unity, if you imagine that the I thus apprehended is inherently one with the 5 aggregates. Since living beings have 5 aggregates, the I, too, would have to have 5 distinct continuums. You would have 5 people. If the I was 1, the 5 aggregates too, would have to be 1 partless, and so on, which poses many problems. Consequently, conclude that the I thus apprehended is not one and the same with the 5 aggregates. Moreover, if the I thus apprehended is established as one with the aggregates, as the 5 aggregates arise and disintegrate, so would the I established by the perception aware of it, standing on its own, have to arise and disintegrate. If that were the case, would the I that arises and disintegrates be one with or distinct from its previous moment of existence and its subsequent moment? If you were to consider it to be one with them, then the I of the previous life, of the present life, and of the subsequent life, all 3 would be one and partless. If they were distinct, although generally speaking, what is distinct is not necessarily unconnectedly distinct. Still, whatever is inherently distinct must be distinct and utterly unconnected. The I of the previous, of the present, and of the subsequent lives would be utterly unconnected. This poses many problems. One would experience the results of karmas one had not created, karma created would go to waste, and so forth. Hence, the previous and subsequent moments of such an I are not inherently distinct. Therefore, conclude that the I as apprehended by that perception is not one with the aggregates. Okay? In addition, if the I thus apprehended were one with the aggregates, since they would be inherently one, they would have to be completely and utterly one. If that were the case, it would conflict with the I or self being the appropriator of the five aggregates, with the five aggregates being what is appropriated by the I or self, and so on. Therefore, conclude that the I thus apprehended is not one with the five aggregates. Regarding the fourth key point, ascertaining the lack of inherent plurality, although the I thus ascertained is not established as one with the five aggregates, if you think perhaps it is established as distinct from the five aggregates, just as once you have eliminated each of the four aggregates, the aggregate of form and so forth, there remains the aggregate of consciousness that can be recognized distinctly. Once you have eliminated each of the five aggregates, that of form and so forth, you should be able to identify distinctly an I thus apprehended, but that is not possible. Somebody in Tibetan, when they write sentences, sometimes the sentence is actually a paragraph, so you get a translation like this. Okay. Consequently, conclude that the I thus apprehended is not established as distinct from the five aggregates. I'll just read to the end of this section. By analyzing the four key points, once you have ascertained that the I is apprehended by the innate grasping at I does not exist, meditate on that ascertainment continually and one-pointedly, free of laxity and excitement. If the ascertainment weakens slightly, beginners should revert to an analysis of the four key points and induce the ascertainment of the lack of inherent existence. Those with higher faculties will analyze whether the I as it appears to innate grasping at I exists or not. On that basis, they can elicit the ascertainment of non-inherent existence in a way similar to the analysis of the four key points. At that point, the way to meditate on space-like concentration is to meditate one-pointedly on the combination of the two, from the angle of confirmation, the firm ascertainment of non-inherent existence, and from the angle of appearance, the ascertainment of emptiness, that is, the simple absence of the object of negation, inherent existence. Subsequent to space-like concentration, meditate on the illusion-like display of the I and so forth, that is, of all phenomena. In addition, by the strong ascertainment of non-inherent existence in meditative absorption, subsequently train in inducing the appearance of a false and illusion-like display according to which all that manifests lacks inherent existence, though it appears. Got it? Okay, so this is going to take a little time to understand, and, so we'll go back to, we'll start with the third key point, but, in the week, kind of maybe review this, get familiar a little bit with the vocabulary, think about it a little bit.